If nobody else wanted the thing that I wanted, I began to question whether that thing was wantable or not, whether it was desirable.
한 명품샵으로 들어온 손님의 눈에 자켓 하나가 들어옵니다. 멋스러워 보이기도 하고 마음에 들기 시작했는데요. 직원은 망설이는 손님에게 간단한 방법으로 자켓을 구매하게 만들었습니다. 바로 두 번째 들어온 손님에게 그 자켓을 적극 추천하는 거였죠. 자켓은 하나뿐이고 내가 구매하지 않더라도 다른 사람이 내가 골랐던 물건을 구매하는 것은 싫습니다. 갑자기 자켓이 달라 보이고 자켓을 향한 없던 구매 욕구도 생깁니다. 프랑스 철학자 르네 지라드는 이런 말을 했습니다. 인간은 자신이 무엇을 원해야 하는지 모르는 존재다. 대부분 사람들은 자신이 무엇을 원해야 하는지 모르기 때문에 타인의 원함을 통해 학습합니다. 한마디로 타인의 욕구가 전염되는 것입니다. 하지만 서로를 적으로 여기고 시기하게 되는 부정적인 결과를 낳기도 합니다. 역사적으로 많은 문학에서도 그랬는데요. 가인과 아벨, 이삭과 이스마엘, 요셉과 그의 형제들, 야곱과 에서, 인나나와 에르시키갈, 오시리스와 셋, 이사나기와 이사나미, 발리와 수그리바, 무파사와 스카.
If nobody else wanted the thing that I wanted, I began to question whether that thing was wantable or not. I noticed it in dating, in business, even in the choices of food that I would order in restaurants. And there is a possibility of conflict or rivalry with these people. These are people that are in our family. These are people in our workplace. These are people that could even be our friends. It's easier to compare ourselves to them. These are the kinds of people that we look to as benchmarks, and we're far more likely to be envious of somebody that we went to high school with who now has a great job and a beautiful spouse than we are to be envious of the richest person in the world. The danger with external mediators of desire, with keeping up with people that are very successful, with people that have modeled a certain kind of lifestyle, is that there's no end to that process.
이렇게 타인의 원함이 나의 원함이 된 상태에서는 파이가 작아 보일 수밖에 없고 상대를 짓밟는 것이 유일한 길처럼 보입니다. 그런데 이 생각에 오래 머물수록 그 끝은 허무합니다.
But rivalry can also turn negative when we cross a certain boundary. The problem with mimetic rivalry is that we begin to see others as enemies. If this other person is in my way, if they're a constant thorn in my side, the other solution is to eliminate them in some way. They're fired, canceling them, physical violence. When people are locked in a mimetic rivalry, it's an infinite game. And that's because there's very little awareness in society of the mimetic mechanism. The first step to breaking out of a rivalry is simply to be aware that you're in one. If we're not aware that we're rivalrous, that this is a zero-sum game that isn't going to end well, there's really no hope of breaking out of it except for some kind of outside intervention.
피터 티엘은 22세기의 사람들은 르네 지라드가 발견한 이 인간 본성에 대해 다시 생각하게 될 것이다 라고 말하기도 했습니다.
One of the ways in which it's influenced me a great deal is thinking about how to avoid conflict within a business. So the standard account of conflict is that it arises when people fight about differences, whereas in mimetic theory, conflict arises when people fight about the same thing. And certainly my experience over the last 10, 12 years is that that's almost always the case, that the really great conflicts were over people wanting the same thing, the same position, the same promotion, the same set of responsibilities. So one of the challenges as a CEO is to try to apply mimetic theory and preemptively avoid conflict by making sure that roles are reasonably well differentiated. And in an early stage entrepreneurial setting, this is extremely difficult because the roles tend to be very fluid. And most of these companies, whether they succeed or fail, is often driven by internal dynamics, not by external ones. It is whether the people are able to work together well enough to create a new product or build a new technology, rather than the sort of external competitive landscape.
피터 티엘이 자본주의에서 경쟁하는 사람은 부자가 되지 못한다고 말한 이유는 결국 시기 질투로 시작된 경쟁의 끝은 제로섬, 허무한 결말이기 때문이며 많은 사람들이 진짜 자신이 원하는 것을 찾아 자신만이 할 수 있는 것을 발견하지 못한 상황에서 다른 사람과 경쟁하느라 인생을 허비하기 때문일 것입니다. 결국 타인의 성공과 원함에 어떻게 반응하느냐가 내 집중력을 좌우할 키가 될 겁니다.
Lamborghini realized that rivalry with Ferrari could take him to places he didn't want to go. Everybody at the company wanted him to enter the racing business. He took a step back and he saw that he didn't want the rivalry to last. He wanted to be his own person and not constantly be tethering his ideas of success to Enzo Ferrari. So when we realize that our desires don't originate with us, it frees us up. We have freedom to rise above that base mimetic nature and to choose the way that we're going to respond.
다른 사람과 나를 비교하여 부정적 트랩에 걸리지 않는 두 가지 방법입니다.
Renunciation. Ferruccio Lamborghini decided to renounce the temptation to enter the racing business, to extract himself for what could have been a game of obsession and never-ending rivalry with Ferrari until the end of his life. It's not that he didn't care about making beautiful cars or didn't care about his company anymore. It's that he knew that a time had come for a pivot, and the pivot for Lamborghini allowed him to live a very fulfilling life, and his company continued without his personal animosity towards Enzo Ferrari coloring his entire company for the next 50 years. Forgiveness is also a very anti-mimetic action to take, because we're highly mimetic when it comes to conflict, when it comes to violence. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. We have to break the cycle of logic through this supernatural act. Forgiveness goes beyond the rational. It's getting at this great power that we have as human beings to choose not the instinctual reaction. Incorporating things like empathy and forgiveness is really important. When we listen to another person with empathy, we can quickly break through a negative mimetic cycle because people want to imitate the empathy that they received.